Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Grande Bouffe.
The Big Fee.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. As we do every week, we are here to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer each week. Good evening, Mike.
Welcome to Kinkvember.
Oh, it's a little kinky, this one.
Yeah, I think this might be the only one this month that's quite so kinky, but it's good enough, it's kinky enough to give the whole month a theme, I feel like.
I feel remiss that I didn't include it in my video of the 6 kinkiest sex scenes. I'd have to bump one of them out now that I've seen this movie.
Yeah, this one, it's more than an honorable mention.
Well, I chose a Dogfish Head beer for this one. It's the Liquid Truth Serum IPA, and I chose it because this movie treats BDSM in a very truthful manner, and the doms and the subs, at least during the stricter interactions, shall we say, are real. So, anyway, Liquid Truth Stream IPA from Dogfish Head.
Truth Serum.
Sorry, Truth Serum Stream. Look at I'm already
liquid.
I've already imbibed so much that I'm slurring.
Sodium pentothal is Liquid Truth, right? The Truth Serum.
Yeah, that they would all those movies in the 50s. They always had that. 6.8.
Ooh,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, that'll give me a ton of truth.
I like the label a lot. It's got an eye, and then there's some little hops dancing around, and there's a MC dude who looks like he was in the Grateful Dead or something.
This is definitely a light, nicely bitter, hoppy IPA that makes you want to just grab some like beer battered fish.
Yeah, it's got a really light body. That's the new trend in IPAs. I personally am not such a fan of the light body. I like the heavier body, but
you think when it's like thick and like really tastes like soap? No.
I'm more of a West Coast IPA person. So, Green Flash.
Oh yeah, I do like this art. We got a kind of like a snake oil dude.
Yeah, he's got a little cane and the hat. He's got the beard. He could probably do a Santa Claus impersonation. All right, so I found this film on Filmstruck. I was searching around, putting together my choices to build a theme on for my next episode of Filmstruck Streaming, which will be out soon. And I came upon this movie by Barbie Schroeder, who I've been a fan of for a long time, and there's a little. I think they have a little video that tells it's an interview with him on Filmstruck. It's a separate edition that you can watch, and he talks about the film and talked about using real submissives to act out the BDSM sequences that we see. Anyway, made me very curious about the movie and the fact that it was Gerard Depardieu's first contract role. So even though he had done movies before this and shot films before this one was released, between the time he made it and it was released, in some ways it's Gerard Depardieu's first big role.
So it's like when Greta Gerwig got her first role with like a real release, you know? I'd really say that Gerard Depardieu was the Greta Gerwig of his day.
Well, a little more than that.
That holds up.
No, he was really the French Robert De Niro, is how he was always thought of. And when I was growing up in the 80s, 70s, and 80s, it was just considered common knowledge that Robert De Niro was the greatest. Al Pacino was maybe second greatest. Dustin Hoffman was third. That was just how the thinking was. Steve McQueen might have been number one, really.
But Gerard
Depardieu was the top-rated French actor.
He's just this hulking, erect, like phallic thumb of a man that is actually quite a talented actor, but he's so much more than all those other actors, though. He's very physically intimidating and present.
He is.
It's kind of a Schwarzenegger thing where you feel like you need to just reference the fact that this man is a giant creature.
Yeah, it also George Clooney can have that effect too, and Tom Hardy can have that effect.
I thought of Tom Hardy a lot with this. I think Tom Hardy is actually a pretty good analog to Gerard Depardieu these days. I think they have sensitive, interesting things.
Yeah, except now Gerard Depardieu weighs about 340 pounds and has to, I think his nose has its own zip code.
I was watching this movie with my girlfriend and her roommate, and I knew they wouldn't know the answer to this, but I was like, you guys think that dude's handsome? You should look him up now. It's always a fun, dangerous game to play. He's also had quite a notorious life of being drunkenly crazy. I think he has assaulted a few flight attendants in his day. I'm sure if he wasn't already known for being a brash who's who about the continent, he would be getting his heyday in the Hollywood press now.
Sure.
Although it's very domestic.
Well, he also I think he got Russian, he's a Russian nationalist so that he doesn't have to pay taxes so he can hide money in Russia and stuff.
So he's our next,
he might
policy advisor to the administration.
Yeah, sure. I'll go with that. So all right, so this movie came out in 1976, and it's to me, it's just stunning how ahead of its time it must have seemed when it came out, and how ahead of its time it still could be considered.
Because absolutely, S&M has gone mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But by mainstream, I'm talking about 50 Shades of Grey, which were you unfortunate enough to also see that film? I'm sure you.
I suffered through it and swore to never do it again.
It gives you a uniquely bad taste.
Oh, it's so
brain.
terrible. It's so awful.
It's like watching a date movie or Meet the Spartans. It's that level.
It's so
of just
not.
mind-numbingly
It's
weird.
so not about the thing that it should be about. And this movie is exactly about the thing that it is about, which is what I love about it. I love the screenwriting is. We'll talk about where the story's complexities lie and where they don't. There's certainly some flaws with the movie, but it starts off so naturalistically, where Gerard Depardieu's character swings into town on a train, jumps on a moped, meets up with a friend at a cafe.
Which, what I realized?
Yeah,
he stole that moped.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
It's really smart filmmaking. They leave these things out that you look back and go like, oh wait, he didn't bring a moped on a train.
Yeah, no, he's a roustabout. This guy, he's a rascal, and he hooks up with this other rascal. This guy
he seems like he's at first. I think he's in book publishing. How is this loser hanging out with this fancy guy? And then they flip the script on you again, and it's like, no, he's pretending to sell books so he can spy on people's apartments that he wants to break into because he's just a thief.
That's it, man. That's it. And so that's the world that we're in. And then they knock on the right door.
The wrong door.
Well, I'd say it was the right door.
I agree.
And the girl has a tub that's overflowing, and she desperately needs their help. So she tells them that she'll buy the art books if they'll just fix
all
it.
of them.
They'll just fix the flood, which they do immediately, and then they find out that the woman who lives in the apartment beneath, because they're a little concerned that water obviously might have dripped through, and she informs them that no, she's on vacation in the Riviera. You don't have to worry about her. So immediately they try to rob the apartment, and that's the meet cute for our couple, because it turns out that the apartment is owned and operated, or at least run by, a very formidable young lady.
Yeah, it's her S&M dungeon.
It's her dungeon. It's her apartment and her dungeon.
They really do a kind of spooky Scooby-Doo reveal of it, where they're using flashlights and they're just walking around in the dark, and it comes off more like a legit torture chamber than it does some sort of fun, kinky sex dungeon, including a guy being in a cage. And so,
But that's what dungeons are like, man. That's what it's supposed to be.
well, A, I don't know that, but B, I think it's also a lot more legit.
Come on.
Here's the thing: is no, it's like what we come to learn is that this is a dungeon like with rules. This woman is operating this like ethically, that she like has certain boundaries.
Well, she has a big Doberman named Texas. I want to put that out there. So she's got a protector with her.
Yeah,
and she's really a petite little thing.
And I thought that dog was an
she's so
interesting
poised.
sort of,
She's so poised.
sort of like lampshade they hung, probably because Depardieu is so massive, and you also just sort of worry about her. But they talk about like this dog will kill you, and it kind of gives you a belief that she could operate like safely, being alone there with just this sort of implied threat. Where if this is American film, she would just have like a gun, right? Like that's
so
equivalent.
Buell Ogier plays Ariane. Buell Ogier is the actress, and she's quite lovely with her peroxide blonde hair. She reminds me a little bit of a Debbie Harry.
Or a Melanie Griffith?
Or, yeah, sure. She's petite, but she is really... She's formidable. She's obviously knows her craft when it comes to executing the punishments that she doles out. And one of the things about this movie is that it was banned for a while in the UK because of there's a couple of scenes of torture.
There's a couple of scenes
in the movie
that would have a tough time getting an R rating in the United States currently.
You think so?
It's also it's wrong to imagine, and I don't think our audience would really be under the illusion that our rating system and what's acceptable by the MPAA has been a line from conservative to progressive. It's really been a bit of a bell curve back down into the more conservative.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
With roughly this period, it's like if this movie had a chance to be released as is, it is roughly the year it came out. Like as soon as we get into the 80s, you get more playful nudity, but you're not going to get.
Well,
anything
if you think about it,
correlative.
this came out around the same time that Taxi Driver came out. It's in that same. It's in that same era when it's not long after The Godfather came out, and
same year Rocky came out, just like
and it's also
context.
it's still coming off of the heady free love days of the 60s when people were doing transgressive stuff, and you think about John Waters films and that kind of thing. And anyway, this movie is the story of a dominatrix who meets this small-time criminal, and immediately on their first meeting, he joins in.
They do have a really cute meet cute. Can we break it down? Like I really like it.
Sure.
So they're breaking in. She handcuffs them. Like looking back, it seems like she knew all along what they were up to, and kind of basically convinced them to break into her dungeon so that.
I wouldn't go that far. But anyway.
Well, she might have. But in any case, she hires him to work with her while he's handcuffed down there. She has a sub who is interested in being peed on, and Depardieu clearly discovering parts of himself that he didn't know he had.
Yeah, she invites him or requests that the man that she has only just met pee in the face of the man upon whom she is sitting.
So he makes 200 francs doing this, and uses it to, this is so cute, to pay his friend to go away so he can take her on a date. And it's like really cute.
Yeah, and he ends up telling her that, and she appreciates that. She's flattered by it.
It's very French, for lack of a better thing, just like an understanding of the subtleties of that, and playing both on this sort of patriarchal agenda that
well, it's not the way
Depardieu kind of has, but he also
this is not
himself.
The way it would go in the U.S.
No.
Let's put it that way. The girl would not be giving the guy money and then flattered that he spent it all, even though he promised to take her out, that he spent it all getting his friend to go away.
I think this movie is showing a lot of paradoxes and nuances to the power
Olivier,
dynamics.
by the way, is Depardieu's character. Olivier and Ariane.
So there's a lot of paradoxes and power dynamics that this movie does really interestingly without hitting you over the head, as the horrible American alternative would. And some of those examples is Olivier insists on driving the car around.
Yeah, he's got his macho ways. Well, he worked in a horse slaughterhouse. That was a former job that he had, and at a key moment in the story, he returns to the slaughterhouse to buy some horse meat. He's got a hankering for some horse meat, and he goes and gets it and cooks it up and eats it.
That's really the story beat about like the night is darkest before the dawn, isn't it? Like it's really kind of hitting rock bottom.
Well,
when
I
you're
think
going to see a horse get shot in the head, which I think is also actually happens in this movie, right? That's not
false. No, because then they bleed the horse. You see the horse kicking and he's hanging upside down.
That's a bummer. Yeah, trigger warning. A horse gets killed in this movie.
So, but these are the things that inform these characters. We know more about his character than we do about hers, but the way that they interact, their relationship grows, and you feel the connection between them. And what I really like about what Barbet does with the story is by using an actual sensual context for the characters where there are non-actors playing themselves, that the authenticity there almost makes it a docudrama in scenes during specific scenes.
Can you think of anything to relate it to where you have such real people in it? I'm thinking, I don't remember the name of it at all, but like there was a coal mining movie, and you had some big names, maybe like Christian Bale in it, but then like 90% of the actors were local West Virginia.
Yeah, well, this is different because it's put in a sensual context, and it's put in this social context that, especially, I don't know if people were more open to discussing this kind of material in 1976 than they would be today.
Well, certainly the French too, right? Like,
well, but you saw this artist who had this big exhibition where he made these big block characters look like the woman's bent over and the guy's standing behind her, and there was an outrage, and they had to take it down
in France.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's the Americanization of the world. We're not just spreading McDonald's; we're also spreading sort of inside-out Puritanism.
But she's loaded. She's making more money than this poor guy has ever seen.
Yeah, what do you think 200 francs in 76 would equate to?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Probably $1,000.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. And she wears it well. She the way that she dresses herself and makes herself up in her dominatrix character is a lot about what the story is about, how she has this dual life where she is able to be this dominatrix and then step out of that. And what she appreciates about Olivier, big surprise, is his machismo. So it's playing with that duality of nature and the thing that you say you are the most is probably something that you are the least,
right?
Or at least you're not anywhere near where you think you're that, as much that thing.
So I was getting that before.
The example that I always give is anyone who says, "Oh, I'm a big tipper. I tip everyone." Yeah, I'm a big tipper. That person will be the worst tipper,
right,
that you've ever shared a meal with or shared a cab with or whatever. Anyway.
They'll have some opinion why that person didn't deserve it. Like, I tip people when they do a good job.
Yeah.
So this movie, it's a couple things. One, it's a subculture movie, right? It's a movie that is serving in some ways almost as like a public service sort of, or like you kind of get this.
Well, you know what a corollary movie to this is hardcore that we did.
Sure.
but I think it's also
I think if hardcore was about the girl entering pornography, it would be an exact parallel. But that being an outsider coming into it and then seeing it, I mean, it's a very of any movie we've watched, that's probably the closest. But this is a bit more accepting the culture in itself.
Yeah, it's more an update on Buñuel's Belle de Jour. There's a lot of corollaries between Belle de Jour and this one, not the least of which is the blonde hair, the incredibly blonde hair.
I think it's a lot like the first Fast and Furious film.
Oh my goodness! All right, spell it out.
You have a subculture, and you have an outsider who seems to have a complicated relationship with it, which is Paul Walker's character. But soon enough, he's part of the family. But he's also transforming the family into something that it wasn't before, into what it always should have been. Which, I'll get into a bit now. Is this movie also about a guy civilizing a girl? You know, is this a wild woman that just needed a good dicking or something like that? Is it this sort of, like, that's the sort of the chasing Amy thing, right? Which is that like every lesbian just needs does every dom just need to have a strong enough like guy who just looks like a walking penis?
I wouldn't say that that's the case, but I would say that it does speak to the unity of opposites, and so what we're seeing is somebody who's doing a sensual act or a series of sensual acts that they really enjoy, but they don't represent her values.
And it's not her sexuality. And I think what it gets...
No, it's her sensuality.
Sure. But the sex that she has is... We don't see a lot of it with Depardieu, but you have the sense that it's fairly vanilla. Or, you know, they seem to be very in love, and I'm sure it's like passionate sex, but it wouldn't make good porn, you know. And I think that's an interesting thing about people in sex work is that you have to realize that like this is their job.
I don't think there's such a thing as bad porn. I think
that's very sweet. That's very nice.
That all porn is good porn.
That's very nice. But you know what I mean, though, is her day job is titillating to people who are explicitly into it, and also for people who just see it as crazy, and you find it like it's very stimulating to watch someone engage in S&M activity, even if you don't have a foot fetish, if you don't want to be beaten, you find it crazy to look at. Where the type of sexuality that it seems like they have, if you were that couple, it would probably be amazing. If you were a stranger watching it, you'd be bored out of your mind.
I don't agree with that. I think if you were watching Depardieu and Buell making it, I think you'd watch.
That's kind of specific because they are two extremely attractive people.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay,
yeah, so
I see what you're saying. But do you see my point is that like
but see your point doesn't work because
they're not having crazy like with some exceptions. It's like
this guy worked in a slaughterhouse. You think he can't lay pipe? I bet this guy could.
Why don't they show it? Like, come on. Follow my point here is that like they have.
Well, okay, yeah. I'd say you've landed on one of the weaker points, weaker issues in the film.
I think it's a strong point. I think it's very interesting.
But wait a minute. But the film's climax, he saves it all for the end, and I'm not sure that that's a bad thing. So when you do see them, and that's what they're doing there in the car is pretty crazy because if you don't like spoiler alerts, turn off the thing now because I think we really should. We have to talk about. We'll put a pin in it. But we got to come back to the end of the movie.
Do they have sex? Do we like?
Well, they do at the end.
Yeah, but before that, like, is it possible that they have not had sex up until then?
No, they're French. Come on.
Yeah, right. But it's like that's a version of the movie is that actually they've never made love until that final scene.
No, they've been busy.
To speak cinematically, we certainly don't see it. We certainly don't see a sublimation of like the two sides.
But we see the foreplay to it.
Right. And the other thing that's important to that too is that, you know, to hedge towards what that last scene that we're talking about is they're in a car when they're making love, and there's been a bunch of these sort of coupley fights about who drives the car.
Don't say sort of.
There's been kind of some. There's,
No!
Yeah. There's been, which is a trope I've seen in so many films.
Oh my lord.
You know this trope of a couple arguing over who drives the car? It's who's in charge in the relationship. You know, it's a kind of a metaphor that's sitting right there for you. And then at the end, the answer is, and we'll go into more explicit detail because we have a scene we need to talk about that Cole just queued up. But at the end, they're both kind of driving the car, which you might think might not work out. And that's a great point.
Yeah, and it's a precursor to Crash. So
we're gonna just talk about Crash at the end of this episode, right? Like
it looks like it. So we're watching the scene where Ariane has brought Olivier to a rich chateau where the scene is really erotic, I gotta say.
It's
so
crazy.
So where the aristocrats who run the show, they have their dutiful female submissive who really, really likes to be spanked and beaten with a strap. And again, we know that this is a real submissive from the scars on her bum.
Yeah,
she's got. I mean,
this up, right? Like that's what it says.
No, but I don't need to look it up. I can see it on me. That's not makeup. Right. You know, the girl's got scars on her butt from because she's a real sub, and by putting that level of authenticity in the movie, it just broadens the social context so much. Here they are after the spanking session is over, and now they're all gonna have some coffee and orange juice in the backyard before they leave. So you really get this picture of society and high society. We all know about all the perversions. I mean, Anthony Weiner, 21 months. Is that what he got?
Yeah, I hope it's more.
Yeah.
Am I wrong in this scene? So the person who we first believe is the butler is actually the estate holder, and vice versa. Am I wrong in that? I think that's what I think happens is that she shows up and she's just belittling this butler in a way that makes you kind of concerned about her character, and it's this there's this cruelty that you didn't expect, and you're like, whatever these people were into, you really think the butler signed up for it too? And then as they leave, it turns out that the butler was actually the estate owner, and he had. So that's a bit of an image of
that cruelty aspect is a big deal because we see Depardieu take the belt, and he's totally in control. So really, but at this time, they're having fun together, both being doms. They're a dom duo, if you will. So he really likes it, and. Yeah, it's just talk about a meet cute. This is they've connected on this level that most people would never even imagine. But she does have this layer of cruelty, and we see it when she's feeding her Venus fly traps the flies, and also when she nails that guy's balls to the board. But with a hammer.
The thing is that her cruelty always seems to be requested by these people. They've signed contracts. The butler that she's mean to is actually a wealthy
she explains
chateau
owner. In the dialogue. I love it where he asks her about it, and she explains it very succinctly about how the submissives tell her what they want, and then she extrapolates on it and gives them and elevates their expectation.
She has the ethics of it are true to like LaVeyan Satanism. I've been going back over my satanic Bible.
Recently. Really? You don't say.
And he lays out that sexuality between consensual people is never immoral as long as it is consensual, in that for someone who wants to be sadistic in sex, it's purely ethical as long as the person who is dominant wants that, and in fact it's cruel to withhold from the it's cruel to withhold from the submissive what they want, and the dom is actually providing them the greatest pleasure. So it's kind of like, if you really can't see, if you just think that people are deranged, you have to understand that people don't know. What do you think it's about? Are you fetishizing, being shamed and embarrassed? What are your thoughts about what S&M is? You don't need to go too deep into your own psyche if you don't want, but I think plenty of people today
curves, man, curves.
Plenty of people are thinking more about this openly, to bring up 50 Shades. But again, 50 Shades is really fucked up, and it's really critiqued by the kink community because it's not depicting kink culture.
Well,
it's depicting.
I wish they would watch this movie.
Yes, I agree.
Because this movie, I think,
what 50 Shades, I just want to finish, is depicting an emotionally abusive relationship.
That's true.
Which is not at any point depicted in this, and if it is, it's because Depardieu turns into. We should get into it. He's a very jealous lover. He can't handle the deal, and he knew the deal from the beginning. Yeah, she's not tricking.
No,
him.
he really breaks character, and what you end up,
or you see the real him, kind of.
Well, that's what I mean. But what you end up seeing though is that she's always in control. He's the one who's not in control. Yeah. She's the one who's always in control, right up till the end, and. So this movie reminds me of Secretary a little bit. It reminds me of Belle Jour. It's a flip on Secretary, but I think that Shane Berg must have seen this movie. I hope he saw this movie because I do see the corollaries between them. But maybe they're just intrinsic in the based on the source material. But it's a very erotically charged movie. I shouldn't really, I don't know. What do you think about, like, if you watch this movie with somebody on a first date?
If you watch this movie on a first date with a person and it goes well, that's great.
You think it's a bellwether movie?
But I think you could watch this movie on a first date and have things get really awkward.
Really awkward.
And that's not necessarily. It doesn't mean that it's a bad match. You're just jumping in feet first.
It's a very provocative movie.
It's definitely at least a third date movie, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. It's more provocative than.
Because it's also like the sexual violence is not just it's not just implied. It is really extreme. Like, I actually did not think about S&M as containing as much actual genital mutilation as is full-on depicted in this film.
Yeah.
She is a next-level dom. She is not just your Bushwick paddle you and call you like, I bet you voted for Trump, you little piece of shit. I bet you just wanted me to rub shit all over your face, you little make America great little fuck. You stupid cuck. I think there's probably a lot of people being called cucks around this country.
Oh man!
But she is.
Well, actually,
she's
now
she's a tactician. She probably went to medical school.
Now that you bring it up, I wish she would have talked. Because she doesn't really talk. She doesn't give orders.
Apparently it's because it's a different actress, right?
But still, you could, no, she doesn't talk to her. She's not giving orders and stuff. I think it would be more interesting if she did. I think that, there's places where good old Barbie could have gone a little further.
Yeah.
Could have filled in a few more details for us.
She does at some point depict her showing someone's fantasy, and it's from my relationship to S&M culture, which I think is just like movies and talking to people who are kinkier than me. What she's describing seems kind of interesting and off base. You're walking down the street and you see someone and you passionately kiss. You remember this scene? She has 3 of her subs in various one is in drag and 2 other are in some leather outfits.
They're made up to be prostitutes. They're streetwalkers.
Oh, right.
They're made up like streetwalkers.
And she's giving them a scene to enact.
Yeah. Well, see, that's a great little scene right there. Yeah, she is giving instructions. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
It's really clarifying that this is about fantasy and not just about pain or emotions.
But I also
it's,
love that
stimulating.
they talk about this stuff. They have conversations about it. You'd never see this in an American film where they're really
Well, you know who's
they're hashing it out.
well, you
man.
know who's on the verge of making this movie and kind of has already made it in several ways is Steven Soderbergh. Like, this is a very
Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
I mean, like the girlfriend experiment, like Soderbergh, like this is the kind of like showing a subculture.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that he's all about.
But
I could see him making a movie like this.
I think this is a much better movie than Girlfriend Experience. I just want to say.
Yeah, that's fair. But in terms of taking a fringe thing like, say, male stripping, and taking it very seriously while also being fun with it, I think he's our best shot of making a movie Mistress.
Well, this is certainly a French film. It feels like a French film, so there's more. It's heavier. The dramatic weight is much heavier than there would be, if this was made in America.
Because you know what the real stakes are at the end of the day? It's just this couple's relationship.
That's all it is.
And that's really cool.
That's great.
No one gets murdered. There's no there is like an intense chasing sequence when he's stalking her a little bit.
Yeah.
But what that is just pure relationship jealousy.
And also he acts like an asshole. He goes out and breaks the guy's window and almost gets his ass beat. Mm-hmm. He's a brute. He's not the smartest guy around, but he has that macho thing that is the opposite of her, and yet it's the equal of her, and she recognizes that, and so that's what she's attracted to. It's really cool.
It's the scenes where Depardieu is drunk and being an asshole. You have to wonder if, in the same way that the subs were given their screen time to just be themselves and to show the world their true selves, that Depardieu was given 3 bottles of wine and just do your thing, baby. Just yell at some people and break some glass.
In the interview with Schroeder says that they were all really happy to be doing that stuff, and
get it out
they had he put out some really nice food for them, and so they all had a really good time sitting around and eating and laughing and chatting about about what they had done. So I think that there is a and certainly, I don't know, it seems that what you say is true, that they wanted their secret lifestyle to be exposed.
Right. And we've said it maybe 3 times already, but to a degree, this is, there's a word called kink shaming. Sex positivism is very much part of a somewhat major part of American culture. Not saying that more than half the country wouldn't be terrified by something like this, but this certainly has made its way into people understanding that it's a variation on normal sexuality, and it's not fucked up as long as people know what they're getting into.
Yeah, I love this. I love that this movie exists, and I love that it was made in 1976. It's unlike any movie that you will ever see, and it does contain 2 or 3 of the kinkiest scenes you'll ever see in a mainstream movie.
It's got to be the dominatrix movie. I assume that there's some... There's some very vampy Hollywood ones, like sort of more...
And, people that are really into spanking,
really
this is a spanking movie. I bet there's a lot of spanking people that don't know about this movie.
Though some of her looks come a little close to it, this isn't Elvira, like, over-the-top, kind of kitschy S&M stuff.
Well, it's her is the thing. You really get the sense that she... these are the costumes that she chose. This is the way that she wants to look. She does some great stuff with her hair and her makeup. She's having fun, man. She's having a blast.
So let me ask you about one scene that's pretty important to it and her motivations with what her profession is when she has a panic attack. She thinks that she's dying and she tries to jump out the window and pull off her corset. And she's yelling for Monsieur Gautier, who is her pimp.
Mm-hmm. No, that's her protector. That's her father figure.
We've talked about it's a little unclear who he is, or maybe it's more straightforward than I think it is. But she's having some doubts about what she's doing. What did you make of that scene? And is it showing that she doesn't actually love her work and she wants to leave it? Because at the end of it, she does leave.
Yeah, no, I think that she got. I think it was the corset. I think that she got a little.
You think she was just?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and who knows?
There's more to it than that.
No, I think maybe she didn't eat lunch that day. No, I didn't put seriously. I didn't put too fine a point on it. It just those kinds of things.
Doesn't it launch Olivier's reaction though? Like he takes that as a sign that she's being trapped and is living a life that she doesn't want.
I think they both come to terms through their actions because Olivier takes it upon himself to ruin her relationship with her pimp, and so they both are forced into this situation where they have to look at what they're doing. She more than Depardieu, because all he's doing is really whatever she's doing, but she's the one who has to take a step back and look at the life she's living, and she decides I can move away from this, and heaven knows she's probably set aside quite a stack of cash.
Yeah.
So she can really do. This is it's a feminist movie. But I wouldn't even say that in a review of it. I don't think, because it's handled in such a matter of fact way. This is it, and it's one of the cool things about it is this kind of stuff was going on in dungeons in and around Paris and France in 1976, and it's been going on long before that and all through history since then. So you're getting this look at a culture that's been around for a long time and is going to be around as long as mankind is around, I believe.
It's a feminist movie in definitely the way that the character is portrayed. I have yet to figure out what I think of the end, because any movie where a woman leaves a job where she is empowered in control of her life to be in a relationship with a man, you have to wonder, is this a feminist message? And I don't know, because it's very complicated what is really going on. I mean, in one sense, this sort of bore... Sorry for saying the sort
well,
of...
look,
this bore runs into her life, turns it upside down, because he's in love with her, and she winds up with him.
But see, here's the thing. She's in love with him, too. It's a two-way street. And so, and I think it takes a little crisis at the end for them to realize that they should be together. But they're both daredevils, and... They're well suited for each other.
One thing that you could say is that perhaps Olivier shows her that what he's offering her is not dependence upon him, but actual liberation.
I don't think that I really don't think that he shows her anything. I think that the lessons, all the lessons learned, pretty much fall on his shoulders. Even up to the end.
She leaves her. Someone is supporting her financially and protecting her.
Wait a minute. No, well, she's...
Mr. Gautier, that's what she says, is that he's it seems that he's not just her pimp, but that he's keeping her afloat in a certain way, that he's in love with her.
Oh, right.
She's depending upon him.
Right.
And one thing that is different, perhaps she will start her own dungeon.
Well, look,
maybe
let's talk about it. Let's take it from a literal point of view. Let's say, and this is really where we get into thin ice here, because what if Mr. Gautier really is her father, or what if he's her adopted father? The exploitation. There is exploitation going on.
Yeah.
And so maybe her decision at the end, to leave Gautier behind is a leap into liberation for her.
I think, let's project 6 months in the future. I imagine that she starts her own dungeon and she keeps all of the money.
Sure.
And that Olivier is there and he pisses on all the guys
there
with
you
her.
go.
And that's very lovely, and that's an evolution for both of them. So, yes, she leaves her life and turns it upside down because of this guy, but I believe that it would actually be an act towards autonomy, because she realizes she doesn't need this patriarchal support.
Well, now
but she can have a relationship with a big beefy dude
who will be her new bodyguard.
Because it's okay to have a dog that's there and who barks and protects you, but that's different than someone who's controlling you.
Yeah.
I like this.
All right.
I like this movie.
There you go. We like this movie a lot. It's on Filmstruck. So shout out to Filmstruck. If you guys don't know about Filmstruck, check it out. They've got all of the TCM and Criterion collection.
And they don't cut out the dick mutilation.
They don't cut anything out of anything. There's also a lot of Janus films and Kino Lorber stuff. It's really, for $11 a month, it's a riches of cinema, I tell ya.
It's 2 Amazon rentals.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it. Anyway, thank you all very much for listening. If you feel so inclined, please go to my website and click on a page that isn't the home page, and you'll see over on the right a link to my Patreon page where you can support Le Grande Bouffe, the Big Feast. You could give us $5 a month, or $10 a month, or $25 a month, or $50 a month. There are lots of rewards there, and if you invest enough in us, you can even come on the program. So thank you all very much for listening. Please like us and share us. And remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie.